Greetings loyal subscribers and honoured guests. It's time to take a look at another selection of classic Megadrive games. I have increased the number of games to 4 this time around, so let's get started. Decap Attack is a fun platformer with nice responsive controls. Your main character, Chuck D. Head, has a standard belly attack which can take out most enemies pretty easily, but it can be a bit tricky to use on bosses because you have to get up close. By breaking stone totems scattered around the stages, you can find a skull power-up, which allows you to throw your head at enemies. This is much more powerful than the normal attack, but its use is limited, so don't waste it. Normal enemies can also be killed by bouncing on their heads, and handily, enemy projectiles can also be stopped by attacking them. The game is fairly challenging, although not so hard as to be frustrating. You can continue if you lose all your lives, though this does send you back to the beginning of the world that you're on, rather than the current stage. The only thing that annoyed me about the gameplay was that you have to find a certain object on stage 3 of each world before you can progress. These objects being different parts of a skeleton that you're putting back together. The names of the different worlds hint at which body part is hidden there. For example, World 1 is called Abdomen Land, and World 2 is called Elbow Island. Yes, these puns are terrible. Interestingly, in Japan this game is called Magical Hat Flying Turbo Adventure and features much more colourful graphics. For some reason the game was reskinned with a horror theme when it was brought across to the West, but the level layouts are pretty much the same. I'm not sure which version I prefer, to be honest, but either way you have a decent platformer. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine is another puzzle game, but personally I find this one much more enjoyable and interesting than Columns. Little beans with eyes come down from the top of the screen in pairs, and it's your job to rotate them and chain 4 or more of the same colour together, thus removing them from the board. However, your real aim is to try and set up chain reactions where clearing out one colour of bean will cause those above to fall down and remove another colour, and so on. If you successfully pull this off in multiplayer or during the campaign mode against AI opponents, then you will send ghost beans over to their side. These can only be removed by removing beans next to them, thereby making it more difficult to remove them and accelerating the other player's demise. The first player to let the beans reach the top of the screen loses. This is basically the exact same game as Puyo Puyo, except with a Dr. Robotnik theme. Later versions of the game, such as the recent Puyo Puyo Tetris, have introduced various special abilities for each of the different characters, but this early version doesn't contain that. It's pure Puyo Puyo's, plain and simple. It's still pretty addictive as it is though, especially when played against a friend. The music is also really catchy and gives the soundtrack of Dr. Mario some serious competition. Definitely one worth coming back to time and time again when you have company. This is the second platform game this episode that features a main character with a detachable head, but Dynamite Headdy is quite different from Decap Attack. Just look at the bright colours and incredibly detailed graphics for starters. This game was developed by Treasure, regarded by many to be the best developer for the Megadrive. They were made up of various different Konami employees who became fed up of working on licensed games and sequels, and so they left to set up their own development studio. Dynamite Headdy is not one of their most famous creations, but it is extremely polished and fun to play. I did find it a little tricky to get used to some of the controls though. I know it's not directly related to this game, but while we're on the subject of Treasure, I think it's a shame that some of their other really popular games, such as Gunstar Heroes, are missing from this compilation. It's enough to lose the overall package a point or two, along with a few other notable absences, such as Toe Jam and Earl, but I'll get to that during my summary video. ESWAT is the final game this episode, and this is a very enjoyable action platformer, but it can be rather tough at times. Also, for a game that features a cyber suit for you to stomp around in, it takes a very long time for you to finally get a hold of it. The first few stages take place with you controlling an ordinary guy, blasting away bad guys and staying out of the way of their return fire. As you clear each stage, your cop will get promoted, eventually earning him the right to earn the cyber suit. The levels where you play as a normal plainclothes cop can be tough, but are doable as long as you take your time and learn the enemy patterns. The helicopter fight at the end of stage 1 took me a few tries to beat, but he's not too bad with a little practice. Overall, ESWAT is a fun yet fairly challenging game. The controls and level layouts remind me of Shinobi, except there are no hostages to rescue. And so we come to the end of another episode. Join me again soon for a look at another 4 games. Until then, take care.